Welcome to Crossroads. A new movement is starting to remake America's election laws, and President Donald Trump says he's going to lead the entire effort on it, remaking our election system. Also, Texas, they're opening up their equivalent of Florida's Alligator, Alcatraz, and the newly opened deportation facility, which is now the largest in the entire country. They're calling it Lone Star Lockup. And also in other news, an illegal immigrant trucker accused of killing a family of 3 while driving across several lanes. Well, it's sparking a movement to root out illegal immigrants from the trucking industry. And we'll be discussing these topics, a whole lot more today, so stick around. Make sure to hit that like button, leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe to get updates when the next episode is. Let's jump into it. Now look, first off, President Donald Trump said, he publicly said it, he's going to remake the election laws in the United States. This is major. This is going to change the entire way elections are done. It's going to have a lot of legal challenges probably. Let me show you what he said on Truth Social. He said, I'm going to lead a movement to get rid of mail-in ballots and also, while we're at it, highly inaccurate, very expensive, and seriously controversial voting machines. So he's going to get rid of mail-in ballots, done, and while he's at it, just to get rid of the voting machines as well. He says they cost 10 times more than accurate and sophisticated watermark paper, which is faster, leaves no doubt at the end of the evening as to who won, who lost the election. And he said, quote, "We are now the only country in the world that uses mail-in voting." Is that true? I don't know if we're the only one, but Trump says we're the only one. Maybe we are. He says all others gave it up because of the massive voter fraud encountered. We will begin this effort, which will be strongly opposed by the Democrats because they cheat at levels never seen before. This is Trump saying it, not me. He said by signing an executive order to help bring honesty to the 2026 midterm elections. And he said, remember, the states are merely an agent for the federal government in counting and tabulating the votes. They must do what the federal government, as represented by the President of the United States, tells them for the good of our country to do. And he said, while their horrible radical left policies like open borders, men playing in women's sports, transgender and woke for everyone, and so much more, Democrats are virtually unelectable without using this completely disproven mail-in scam. Again, this is Trump saying it, not me, okay? But he's saying that basically mail-in ballots open the door for mass fraud. Interestingly also, when he was meeting with Vladimir Putin, the head of Russia, of course, Putin also told Trump during that meeting that the elections in 2020 were rigged through mail-in ballots. So it's interesting Trump came out with this right after meeting with Putin. But he says this as well. He said elections can never be honest with mail-in ballots/voting. And everybody, in particular the Democrats, know this. He said, I and the Republican Party will fight like hell to bring honesty and integrity back to our elections. The mail-in ballot hoax using voting machines that are a complete and total disaster must end now. He said, remember, without fair and honest elections and strong and powerful borders, you don't even have a semblance of a country. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. Get ready for the storm, folks, because things are about to get wild. I'll tell you that right now. You're going to be watching Trump move forward with this alongside other things he's doing, like redistricting. Well, technically Republicans are redistricting. And, of course, redoing the census. It looks like he's trying to cement Republican control over Congress just through those things alone, in addition to getting rid of mail-in ballots and voting machines. Again, look, if the elections are totally fair and free, that won't impact anything. It's not going to make it so that Republicans automatically win. I don't know why people defend them, but they are. And the defenses are mostly along partisan lines. Now, look, on this point, during his conversation with Zelensky, right, Volodymyr Zelensky, head of Ukraine in the White House, Trump also said that mail-in ballots are corrupt and that will end, he's going to end mail-in voting. This was during the question and answer session of the meeting. Trump was asked, what do you think about this? And he was like, well, that's off topic, but Trump went on for a very long time talking about how he doesn't believe in mail-in ballots or anything like that. Trump also said he wants paper ballots for elections going forward. Paper ballots, imagine that. He said paper ballots, they give results quicker, same day, one day, vote, boom, counted, you know who's president. No random mail-in ballots discovered in the back of trucks or under someone's table or, rolling in suitcases or bins, and none of that, right? No more of that. It's going to be people casting the votes. They know where the votes are. They're paper. They're not pristine mail-in ballots showing up in drop boxes. No middle of the night drives where people are just stuffing them in the boxes. No more of that. Trump's ending all of that. At least he's going to try to. We'll see how that works. He also said that as we speak, he and his team are working on the executive order that's going to make this happen. He also noted his lawyers are already on it. Being realistic, he knows, I know, we all know, they're going to be facing lawsuits left, right, and center. They're going to be facing lawsuits from every direction as they try, probably in every state, almost every state they try this in, and probably a lot of districts. They're going to get sued all over the place, and they're getting ready for it. Trump says his lawyers are already working on it, and of course they're going to be taking into account the likely legal challenges they're going to face, and there's likely going to be a lot of them. Important also, this is all happening right now leading up to the midterm elections. All the things we talked about right before the midterms. Imagine there's a chessboard. Everybody's putting their pieces on the chessboard right now, and Trump is putting a few extra pieces on it. Let's put it that way. Trump and the Republicans right now are doing things that are going to possibly radically change the election system. Because remember, the changes we could see happening ahead of the midterms, they're really broad. In addition to ending mail-in ballots, in addition to switching to paper ballots and getting rid of the machines, there's also the moves to redistrict. That alone, there's various estimates on how much of a difference it's going to make. Some suggest redistricting could get Republicans in the House of Representatives probably around 25 additional seats. That's, we'll see how the left does their redistricting. California is trying to basically negate Texas redistricting. Texas looking to hand an additional 5 seats to Republicans. California moving to redistrict now, likely going to hand 5 additional seats to Democrats. But if all the different states decide to redistrict, the reality is Democrats have been using redistricting in their favor much more than Republicans, because Republicans, whenever they try to redistrict, it's just a fact, Democrats get more of the minority vote, and so when Republicans try to do it, they call it racist. And because they call it racist, Republicans typically have historically gotten blocked from redistricting. The Supreme Court has now changed that, so they can do it. And because Democrats have already been doing it, they don't have as much ground to gain as Republicans do. They have a lot more to lose. So we'll see how that goes. You have some areas where, you have like 30, 40% Republican voting base and 0 representation in the House of Representatives. 0. So at least on the Republican side, right? Republicans have a lot more to gain through redistricting. They're also working to redo the census, as I mentioned. Various estimates on that will be a redoing of the census that does not count illegal immigrants. That's estimated to hand anywhere from 10 up to 40 House seats to Republicans. The midterms are going to be wild. The midterms are going to be wild. And I'd say probably from here all the way through it. You're going to be watching lawsuits challenging all of this. Get ready for it. And look, on top of all of this, there's also a case being heard by the Supreme Court, in addition to everything, that could determine whether it's legal for states to keep on counting ballots after Election Day. The case now being heard by the Supreme Court is brought by Judicial Watch against Illinois. This is over the state currently being able to count ballots 14 days after the elections, because We've just kind of accepted this as normal. Election day arrives. Americans want to find out who's president. Some states close the same night. Some states a week, 2 weeks later, sometimes even longer. They're still counting the ballots. And they're like, hey, we found another bin of ballots in the back of my car. Wow, what a surprise. Guess we got to count those too. And of course, you watch the elections change drastically sometimes. There's a case now being heard at the Supreme Court that can make it so, nope, one day, election day, that's it. And on the side of Republicans, that's what Trump has been saying also. He says the Constitution lays it out. There's election day, not election week or election month. There's election day where you cast your votes, the votes are counted, and you want answers by the end of it. So again, clearing the way on all the different issues, ballots, mail-in ballots, voting machines still tabulating. They're changing all of that right now. So get ready for it. Also on the point of Trump's talk with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, I briefly mentioned, they met in the White House yesterday. It actually went pretty smoothly. They didn't argue this time. There was no fighting. They were not talking about playing cards and whether or not this is a card game. Zelensky wore a suit. It was a suit that looked like a mix between a business suit and a military uniform. He met Trump halfway because remember last time they were like, you didn't even dress up for us. He also said thank you many times because last time he came in, he was questioned, have you even said thank you? He said thank you repeatedly this time. And it was a much more friendly meeting. It went surprisingly smoothly. Now, leading up to the meeting also, Zelensky was saying that it would be impossible for Ukraine to surrender territory to Russia. Remember, that's one of the big things that Russia wants. We will see if that changes. Russia wants the Donbass region as part of the peace deal. Now, in terms of what Ukraine is going to get out of it, again, everything's still in the works. The United States and Europe, they could give Ukraine a type of long-term security on par, similar to them being part of NATO, but without official NATO membership. NATO membership is a red line set by Russia. The agreement they had is they can basically give NATO protection, but without technically giving them NATO membership. And Russia actually agreed to those terms. Now, from here, Trump's going to speak with Putin again. The next big step, they're going to arrange a meeting between Putin and Zelensky. We're going to see how that goes because when people are fighting a war and a lot of their people are getting killed in a war, they often don't like each other very much. Putin and Zelensky are going to meet. And we'll see how that goes. After that, they're going to have a trilateral meeting, I guess you could call it. Trump, Putin, and Zelensky are going to meet. They're not giving details on that yet. They're not saying where it's going to be. That's going to be a very sensitive meeting, but that's the next step. Alongside meeting with Zelensky yesterday also, Trump also met with many NATO leaders, including Macron in France, including various EU leaders. We're going to see how this deal gets made because they need the buy-in of a lot of people. Notably missing from that was the Chinese Communist Party, by the way, because again, Xi Jinping is being kind of sidelined in this whole thing. And that's an interesting development because Xi Jinping, the CCP, they want to keep the war going, not because they care about Russia, not because they care about Putin, but because they don't want America being able to shift its military focus to China more fully. They're in it purely for self-interest. They don't care about Russian lives. They don't care about Ukrainian lives. They treat it as the meat grinder to keep America busy. They're not part of the meetings. So big developments. Again, I'll keep you updated as things come out on it. As of right now, there's no deal. We don't know the details of it. These are just your friendly meetings. Part of it was closed doors. We don't even know it was discussed behind closed doors. It's all up in the air right now. But what we can say as of now, the meetings went well, at least on the surface. It looked like Zelensky got to stay for lunch this time. You know what I mean? So it looked like it went very well, like realistically. Now, like in other news, though, Texas is now opening up its equivalent of Florida's Alligator Alcatraz. This is now officially the largest deportation base in the entire country. I'll be talking more about this after we come back from a quick break.
All right, just to pause here for a super quick moment. You are, of course, watching Crossroads with Joshua Philipp. I'm just here to share a message about American Hartford Gold, my own personal gold and silver bullion dealer. Now, obviously, the recent tariffs have made the markets super turbulent and volatile. With every new piece of tariff news, the markets seem to either crash up or crash down. And of course, it's worth mentioning that these conditions don't only affect Wall Street. They affect all of us through our investments and our retirement accounts. That's why I'd like to introduce you to a company that I trust and I myself use to secure my own savings, American Hartford Gold. They specialize in helping Americans move our assets into something tangible, into something you can actually hold, which is physical gold and physical silver, two precious metals that act as a hedge against all those decisions being made in Washington, D.C. They have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. They have thousands of 5-star reviews, and they make the whole buying process super simple. Your metals can be shipped directly to your door, or you can transfer your current retirement account to a tax-advantaged gold IRA. And the best part is that right now, American Hartford Gold is offering an exclusive offer. When you call them today and you mention the name Joshua, you could receive up to $15,000 in free silver with your initial investment. Take advantage of their special offer. You can either just call them at 877-260-2764 or text Joshua to 65532. All their information will also be down in the description box below. And now, back to Crossroads.
Welcome back. Look, if you're enjoying the show, support us by hitting the like button. It's so easy. Just hit that like button, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. It really helps us get the show out to more people and to get updates on when the next episode is. What a great exchange. Now look, in other news, Texas is opening up its very own equivalent of Florida's Alligator Alcatraz and the newly opened facility. It's already in existence, already open for business. It is now the largest of its kind in the entire country, and they're calling it Lone Star Lockup. That's right, they're going to come up with a name like this probably for every facility they open now. That's just how they're doing it. The Hill said this. They said, as the federal government continues large-scale deportations of undocumented migrants. Look, they're documented. This is the stupidest label they've come up with in a while. They're not undocumented. If you were on, again, temporary protection status, you were documented. They documented you. If you were brought in through the, facilitated mass migration system, they documented you. They check you in when you come in. They had DHS facilities being run with Customs Border Protection where they processed you and documented you. If you weren't documented, you weren't in these, hotels and getting free food, you were documented. The entire label of undocumented migrants is stupid. It's stupid, and it's a total misrepresentation of it. I know it's like the nice way of saying it because nobody wants to say illegal alien anymore. I know that's the politically correct term. But come up with something better, like honestly, like they are documented. Anyways, they're saying this. They say the Trump administration has opened what it calls the largest federal immigration detention center in the country's history. The biggest one ever. The facility, dubbed Lone Star Lockup, opened Saturday in Fort Bliss, Texas, under a $1.2 billion Defense Department contract. And notes the detention center holds 1,000 beds with a plan to expand to 5,000 beds by 2027. Inside are legal access areas, medical treatment areas, and recreational spaces, amenities that immigration and customs enforcement officials say make it more like a traditional facility. Wonderful. Come stay for the weekend and then go home. Now, look, an important part of that, this is actually on a military base. This is on Fort Bliss. And this makes it different from Alligator Alcatraz in Florida. Alligator Alcatraz is more of a government operation. This is a contract in Texas under the U.S. Department of Defense. Now, as a bit of important background to this in terms of how I'm interpreting this, I think they're testing the waters. I think Texas is helping the federal government test the waters on a new effort for deportation facilities. Because if you go back, even before Alligator Alcatraz, Texas had the main facility for deportations. They were already doing it. Texas was actually the area that ran the model for Alligator Alcatraz. And what they're doing now is different. This is not being run by the state. This is not like a local government operation. This is a military operation funded by the defense budget operation. Now, why does that matter? It's because they can do that in different states without needing buy-in from the states. Having it on military land, run by the military, paid for by the defense budget, what does that do? That makes it a lot harder to overturn with lawsuits. You're not going to have people suing the military over this. You kind of could, but they're probably not. It's going to be way harder to do that. I think it's likely if this works in Texas, we are going to see similar operations to this on military bases in other states. They could use military bases in California and do this. And the California government couldn't do anything about it because it's on a military base. They could do this in New York City if they wanted to, right? Because again, I don't know if they have military bases in New York City, but again, if they're doing it on military land with military budget, using military operations, it has nothing to do with the local state law. Nothing to do with it. They can use this to run deportation facilities without needing any involvement from the local government. And that's big. That's very big. Because what else are they doing? Well, one of the problems they have with, let's say, California, right? Can they go and grab people and deport them in California? They're a sanctuary city. The police aren't even allowed to work with deportation officials. It's a misdemeanor charge if they do. They can actually face misdemeanor charges if a police officer helps out ICE. So what is Trump doing? The other big piece, well, they're deploying the National Guard, they're deploying ICE, they're declaring local emergencies, and what you're seeing happening in Washington, D.C., that's probably going to be done all across the country. He's already done it in Los Angeles, he's doing it in D.C., they're talking about Chicago and Detroit and a bunch of other places next. That's next. If they combine this with that, what does that mean? It means Trump is basically federalizing the efforts for deportation, running everything, bypassing the local government and doing it himself, and paying for it with the military budget. That's huge. Everything else aside, for being able to, set up deportation facilities in states that otherwise would not approve of it, this also creates a lot stronger legal protection for these efforts. And that's important because, we were talking about the models for how this could work. Alligator Alcatraz was another type of model. Can they set up a public-private partnership with a district, area, and a state and run these operations? Well, what they found even in Florida, where the local government, Ron DeSantis, is pretty strongly alongside Trump, right? I wouldn't say they're totally aligned, but for the most part, DeSantis is pretty much behind Trump on most issues. But even in Florida, Alligator Alcatraz is facing lawsuits. And Alligator Alcatraz is facing lawsuits that aim to shut down the facility. So in other words, red state, blue state, it doesn't matter. You're still going to deal with lawsuits unless you do it through the military. Texas is now creating the model for that. Now, look, also on the point of illegal immigration, there was a recent trucking accident, a horrible video. I'm going to show it to you just because, it's not a gory video, but it's terrible. This killed 3 people. 3 people were killed in a car accident. And this one is becoming a focal point of how illegal immigrants have been somehow allowed to get jobs as truckers. Let me show you what happened. This is the video going around. Now you can see what happened there. This was in Florida. That truck driver cut across several lanes, blocking the road with the back of the truck. And he was trying to take one of those emergency service roads you sometimes see on, like, they call it the turnpike or the freeway or whatever they call it in Florida, the interstate. Those service roads that police sometimes use. If you're a trucker, you're not supposed to use it. This guy somehow decided he would. And of course, when he did that, he blocked the entire road where people are still driving. Someone slammed right into him, killed 3 people. That turned deadly. And there's been a lot of criticism over his demeanor, how he behaved. Because if you watch the video, he doesn't seem like he's mourning. He's not like, oh my gosh, I just killed 3 Americans. He has a look on his face like, don't film me. And he looks irritated that he has to wait. People are mad about this. I haven't seen people so angry about, illegal immigrant crime as this has been, which is interesting because even, we hear about MS-13 and murdering joggers and killing people in the mountain, it's horrible stuff with these gangs. Tren de Aragua robbing people at gunpoint, riding around little mopeds and stuff like that. People are bothered by that. For some reason, this case is turning into more of a rallying call than any other case that we've seen in a while. The accident again happened in Florida, but it turns out the guy got his driver's license or his trucker's license in California. And that's turning into another very big issue. American truckers said this on X. They said the American trucking industry has been gutted by unregulated immigration over the past 5 years. They say these, quote, California drivers are part of an ecosystem that puts profit over safety, that puts greed before your family, a system that not only does not put Americans first, but allows for the daily slaughter of innocent Americans on our highways. It's time to put Americans first. Investigate California CDL issuance ban. That's again for the licenses for these truck drivers. And revoke all non-domicile CDLs, ban all foreign CDLs. And that's a big campaign right now, by the way. The Trump administration is trying to make it so that, if you want to get a trucker's license, you need to at least speak English. They're having English proficiency requirements. They're also making it so that, they're really going after any illegal immigrants, again, by seeing if they speak proper English. Any illegal immigrants who are driving trucks, technically they're not able to get these licenses. Somehow they've found ways to do it, and that's also part of the debate right now. In response to this controversy, because the guy got his license in California somehow, the office of the California governor, Gavin Newsom, they noted the truck driver illegally entered the United States in 2018. And they note that was during Trump's first term in office. That was before Gavin Newsom became governor in 2019. And that was in response, their statement, to a White House statement that had said, this individual is an illegal immigrant who was granted a commercial driver's license by the state of California. And now 3 innocent people are dead. Now, some also pointed out in response to the California statement that in 2018, Donald Trump was trying to build the wall and deport illegal immigrants. When you had people coming in who were illegal immigrants, especially to California, sanctuary policies, like in California, are what allowed people to bypass the demands from the federal government. Trump was president, get into the country illegally, avoid deportation, even being protected from deportation, because again, even police were not allowed to, assist ICE or anything. And then continue to avoid deportation all the way until now, when a whole family was just killed in a horrific car accident by a guy who doesn't look even fazed by it. Now, also, others noted the statement that was posted from California, which says, quote, fact, consistent with federal law, it's California law that you must have lawful presence, i.e. legal immigration status, in the United States to obtain a commercial driver's license or commercial learner's permit. In other words, California is saying, well, look, according to the law, we're not allowed to issue a CDL license to people like this, to illegal immigrants. And people took that as being not so much in their defense, but actually as part of the accusation against them. They're noting that California may have admitted it violated its own laws because the guy had a California trucker's license and he was in the country illegally. If California is noting that it's against the law to do that, then how did he do it? Gateway Pundit said this. They say, but the White House press team responded with appreciation for Newsom's team, quote, admitting California ignored their own law when they gave this criminal, illegal immigrant, they say scumbag, according to the White House, a commercial driver's license, or CDL. Then they note, it should also be noted that Newsom served as lieutenant governor when he ran for governor in 2018, which again, in their public statement for California, they note that Newsom was not governor at the time. They're noting he was lieutenant governor at the time, which was also when the illegal immigrant entered the United States. And they note as well, it's possible that Newsom was also the governor at the time he obtained a CDL, a commercial driver's license, because entering the country and getting that license illegally, those are two different issues. And, again, we'll see what happens with this. We're probably going to be hearing a lot more about this case because this is now the banner. This case is the banner. It's every time you have a big movement, there's one case that kind of works as the foundation of it. That's the banner of this new movement. And also, while we don't know what language the driver speaks, maybe he did speak English, that also fits in with the other Trump initiative to require all truck drivers in the United States to have English proficiency. Even if they're from Mexico or Canada and they speak French and they're truck driving into the United States because, again, not all truck drivers are based in America. We get foreign trade as well. If they're driving trucks on American soil, they need to speak English. And again, that's because of concerns over safety. Concerns that some of them might not get proper messaging over the radios, concerns they might not be able to properly read road signs, concerns they might not understand some of the different laws here. When they have to be pulled over at truck stops, they are now asked different quizzes in English, and they're using different methods to determine, do you speak English or not? There's a huge movement in the U.S. against non-U.S. citizens or people who don't speak English and illegal immigrants driving trucks. And again, this guy now is becoming the face of that whole controversy. And alongside that, just the entire issue of sanctuary city policies because he got his license in California. Now, also in California, though, the Justice Department is suing the state over laws it has on car emissions, which for any of my California compadres out there, you might know they have all kinds of crazy laws to get smog checks, and they're a total asshole. If you own a car in California, they give you a really hard time on emissions, right? The DOJ is now saying that those checks and so on, they're unlawful. They're trying to overturn it. U.S. Department of Justice said this. They say the Justice Department this week filed 2 complaints in federal court against the California Air Resources Board, CARB, regarding the state's enforcement of preempted emissions standards through its so-called Clean Truck Partnership with heavy-duty truck and engine manufacturers. It's a parallel filing in the Court of Appeals addresses CARB's rules for light-duty vehicles, which are also preempted. These actions advance President Donald J. Trump's commitment to end the electric vehicle EV mandate, level the regulatory playing field, and promote consumer choice in motor vehicles. And they note the Clean Air Act preempts state regulation of vehicle emissions unless the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, grants California a preemption waiver. It says under the Biden administration, EPA granted preemptive waivers for 2 CARB regulations imposing stringent emission standards for heavy-duty trucks. The goal of CARB's regulations is to implement an EV mandate in California and in other states to adopt California's rules. And why does that matter? It's an issue you have with, why does California matter so much? It's because it's such a big state. They have so many House seats. The unions in California are so powerful that even though they might have state unions, oftentimes the state unions are tied into national unions. And because it's such a big state with so many people, they can overturn or outvote everybody else from all other states. If California puts emission standards in place for trucks or cars, what happens? Well, that means the manufacturers, if they want to sell their vehicles in California, they need to make them compliant with California law. And if you're a car manufacturer, well, a truck manufacturer in this case, and you want to sell trucks, are you going to make the California-only version, or are you going to make the United States version and just make them all the same? A lot of this does apply to those big, CDL type trucks, the types that truckers drive. And the other problem you have with California is that part of their standards, look, the big agenda, and this is not like the public banner they're saying they want to have done with it, but this is what a lot of people are saying. The goal for California, they want to have all those commercial trucks be electric. And what they were doing was putting in emission standards and standards for manufacturers that move it towards that. So if California does that, it means that those companies manufacturing those trucks, they're going to make them California compliant, because I've even heard from truck drivers, they don't know what they're going to do, because if you want to do deliveries, you can't take contracts in California because your car or your truck has to be compliant with California law. So by making those laws in California, California was effectively changing the laws of the entire country. That's the argument on it. Now, the Trump administration, they're not overturning that. They're not getting rid of it. They're challenging it. So that's a case currently going to through the courts. We'll see what happens with it, because California, it's such a big state. If they do something that impacts whether people doing business in other states can do business or not, they can create something there and affect the entire country. And that's going to be the challenge on this, right? Trump is saying the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, is the one that gets to say it, not California. And we'll find out, because it has to go through the court system. It'll probably go to the Supreme Court eventually. Now, look, on another topic, though, President Donald Trump is rolling out a new tax. And it's kind of weird, because they're usually against taxes, but this is a special tax. This is a very unique tax. Why is that? It's a tax on universities. And in particular, it's a tax on the endowments of universities like Hartford and Yale, which have massive endowments. The College Fix said this: a higher education economist recently explained to the College Fix how an expanded endowment tax on universities will affect higher education. This is already in place, by the way, but they're just talking about the actual impact of it. This is a recent change. And they're saying some universities will pay more under the One Big Beautiful Bill budget reconciliation law passed this summer and now in effect. The law expands a tax on university endowments first implemented under the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. A lot more taxes for universities. One of the experts they interviewed said this, quote, colleges subject to the tax are required to pay a certain percentage of their endowment income to the government, not a percentage of the value of endowment itself, a common misconception. So in other words, if they have like $1 billion endowment, it's not going to be like they pay a percentage of their entire $1 billion endowment. It's a smaller amount. It's still a lot of money. They say it's according to economist Preston Cooper, telling us to College Fix via email, and added, quote, this percentage ranges from 1.4% to 8%. That's a big tax, by the way, depending on the size of the endowment. And they note the endowment tax expansion will raise about $761 million over the coming decade, 10 years, according to the Congressional Budget Office, which offsets part of the cost of the tax cuts in the bill. Cooper, a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, told The Fix, other estimates have suggested our universities alone could pay $1 billion in the first 5 years. And it says put projected revenue more than $10 billion over the course of many years. The differences, it says, should be due to assumptions about market growth or decline, Cooper told The Fix. And, we'll see how that goes. This is part of the kind of battle that Trump has been having with the universities. Trump is unhappy that universities they're accused of discriminating against Jewish students. like we saw in New York City, by the way, where you have, of course, pretty radical protests where people are threatening Jewish students and so on. Some say, no, it's just the pro-Gaza people and they have free speech. This also ties into Trump's pseudo-battle with Harvard University, also over that issue, and also over the fact that they've been bringing in Chinese students, some of whom are suspected to be spies for the CCP. And the big concern now is that, well, are you bringing in terrorists and spies and people who just plain old hate the United States? They're getting student visas through the State Department. They're coming here, they're studying, they're learning stuff, leaving the country, going back to their countries, stealing our intellectual property, brain drain on our system, making it so that fewer Americans can get into college, and hating America the entire time they're here, and even organizing protests against our country while they're here. Well, that's coming to an end. In fact, again, that's just part of it. Universities, well, they're also facing challenges with the foreign students they've been enrolling, because guess what? While they get a lot of money from students coming into the U.S. from other countries, China and every other country on the face of the planet, the federal government, well, they still get the say on whether the students get visas or not. You can enroll them, but can they come here? That's up to the State Department. And the State Department has decided, well, no, many of them cannot come here. They've now pulled the visas of over 6,000 students in a very short amount of time. Fox News said this. They say the State Department has yanked more than 6,000 student visas in 2025 for overstays and law violations, including support for terrorism, Fox News Digital has learned. And they note the Trump administration has launched multiple initiatives aimed at cracking down on immigration and revoking visas of those attending academic institutions in the U.S., those who've participated in pro-Palestinian protests have faced heightened scrutiny as one example. Some would argue that's free speech. The Trump administration is basically saying, yeah, if you're an American citizen, it's free speech. If you're a foreigner coming here and protesting against our country and threatening our students, you might just be a terrorist. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio said in a statement, or said that in May, the administration was reviewing the visa status of those students. They might just send them all back. And it's the roughly 6,000 visas that were pulled were primarily due to visa overstays or encounters with the law, including assault, DUIs, burglary, and support for terrorism, the State Department told Fox News Digital. And look, that's part of a broader move also by the Trump administration that's in response to college students organizing protests. A lot of this is about the people threatening allegedly Jewish students over the Israel-Hamas war. A lot of this is about the anti-Israel protests we've been seeing all across the country and the heavy involvement of foreign students in those protests. Now, again, some say it's free speech. The Trump administration is saying, yeah, free speech for Americans and not for you if you're a foreign student. That sparked debates also over whether some of these students actually have ties to terrorist groups and on whether we're letting students into this country who then start going against our own government. Because guess what? Yeah, free speech in America, good, but we don't have to let you in, We don't have to let everybody in. And if you're just coming here and criticizing our government, you don't have to be here. You can go home. If you hate it here so much, you don't have to be here. There's a wonderful place for you to go, and it's not here. It's called home. Or like North Korea or something, if you really want socialism so bad. You know what I mean? So they're giving them what they want in some regards. They come here, they say America is the great devil, and they're like, you know what? Maybe you're right. We'll send you back to where you don't have to deal with it, and that is not here. And it's funny you want to come here so bad when you think so badly of us. So that's been the message now from the State Department. You know what I mean? Even if you're not violating the law, if you hate this country so much, you don't have to be here. And they're moving on it. Also important note, the first episode of my special report series, which will eventually be a separate show. We're going to first be launching it on Epoch TV. We're releasing the first one this Friday. That's right, it's coming out. That's August 22nd. Again, this Friday. And in this very first episode, I deep dive into the food chemicals, all those fake artificial colors, and how we've been fed narratives over, well, they're good for us. Just how healthy the food dyes are in many of the processed foods sold right in our stores. And I wanted to answer a big question. I wanted to answer a question. If they're safe, if they're okay, why is it that Canada restricts many of them? Why does Europe restrict many of them? What evidence are these other countries looking at that Americans are not being shown? And if evidence exists that get them restricted in other countries, then how is our regulatory system overlooking that evidence? I will show you all of the evidence in this upcoming episode. I'll throw the link in the description and the live chat. You can watch it. Let me show you the trailer. Despite being among the wealthiest countries on earth, despite our quality of life, Americans are among the least healthy people in the world. We've been told two very different narratives on the chemicals in our food.
This is what most Americans innocently put into their bodies these days.
One of the issues at the forefront, artificial food colors. Certain food colorings, such as Red 40, which is present in widely consumed products, have been associated with behavioral issues in children, such as increased hyperactivity and symptoms consistent with ADHD. So with all these concerns, how are these dyes still allowed for use? What do we actually know about the effects of these artificial chemicals? Who are these qualified experts who generally recognize that these are okay for us to consume? Who has been making the assessment that these are generally recognized as safe? Something has led to a spike in health problems, and for some reason, it's impacting Americans much more than people in other countries. So what are we being exposed to that people in other countries are not? Now that's coming out this Friday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Epoch Times. So make sure to click on the link in the description, get access to it. This is just the first of many investigations I'll be doing. In fact, I just wrapped up filming the next one, which we're going to be working on next. And I'll be moving on to the next one after that. This is the way I'm spending my Fridays now. Now, so let's jump into some questions, comments, anything you want to talk about. Leave it in the chat. Let's have a discussion, folks. Real quick, by the way, one of the most common questions I hear is it Epoch or Epoch? I'll solve the great mystery. It's both. Technically, the American pronunciation is Epoch. Like E-P-E-C, like epic. That is if you go by like dictionary, hard definition, that's how you pronounce it here. Epoch is the sophisticated Queen's English. So if you're Canadian or British, it's epoch. And we at Epoch or Epoch Times do a great deal of confusing our audience because we say both. Because some of our staff are Canadian. Jan Jekielek, who does American Thought Leaders, he's Canadian, you know. He's an American loving Canadian. He says epoch. Some of our British staff say epoch. I say epic and epoch. Some people say epoch, which is totally incorrect, but some people say it because it makes it easier to understand. You're not typing in the search engine EPIC, right? You're typing in EPOCH, epoch. Which doesn't exist as a word, by the way, as far as I know. So, in other words, you know, you say tomato, I say tomato. Some say tomati, and you know what? It's all fine. It's all fine in these woods. Say what you like. Epic, epoch, epoch. I heard some people say epocho, I told him, no, that's wrong. You can't say that. But you can say the other ones, okay? All right, that said, questions, comments, anything you want to talk about, leave it in the chat. Judy Akeem, you're saying, Josh, I think the undocumented label from the media is about making people feel like the only thing between those people and citizenship is an administrative process rather than the unlawfulness of their stay. It changes the emotional element. That's a really good point, actually. I mean, on my part, I think what they've tried to do is they want to eliminate the association of criminality because it is a crime, and that's what that's the determination now of the Trump administration. If you cross the border illegally, if you overstay your visa, you are committing a crime. You are illegal because your physical presence is in fact a violation of the law. And look, it's not like just America that's like this. Most countries are like it. Most countries are really strict with it. I partly grew up in Costa Rica. I'm not Costa Rican. We just went there to surf because my dad was big on surfing. We had land in the Osa Peninsula and fantastic waves, by the way. But if you overstay your visa, you're in big trouble. Like, you cannot overstay your visa. If you overstay your visa, it's a fine, you get arrested. If you go back, it's like, it's big, it's a major crime. Overstaying your visa in some countries is a serious crime. You can't try to overstay your visa in Mexico and watch what happens. Many countries are very strict about it. It's a crime. It's a crime. America has allowed it for so long that it's not viewed by many people as a crime. And we've allowed it on such a broad scale that it's just been allowed to happen. Now, Judy, you make an interesting point, though, that I didn't think of, that by calling them undocumented instead of illegal, you're saying it creates an interpretation that the difference between the two is just an administrative process. All they have to do is document these people, and then they're just like every other American citizen. The only little thing you have to cross is being documented. Just give them documents. Then everything is okay, right? That's interesting, and I think you're actually right. I think you're right on that. It eliminates the interpretation of criminality and the what's associated with that, which is that they're violating the law. But it also makes it so that you can easily say, well, just document them and fix the whole problem. Yeah, and a lot of them want that, right? JA255908, you're saying, I like Epic or Epoch, but I'm not a brick. I'm an American Indian. Good stuff, man. Yeah, I have quite a few Native friends, actually. I mentioned before, actually, I used to be the personal helper of one of the Cherokee elders. And great woman, by the way, Gwendale Cooper. Sorry, we have radio outside. Great woman, by the way. She's old now. She was in her 90s when I used to help her. I think she's still around. I saw her a couple years ago. I think she's well over 100 now. But fantastic woman, actually. And we always had real interesting conversations about Native American culture and stuff, and the fire keepers and stuff like that. Kathleen White, you're saying America would win the lawsuit Olympics. It's getting ridiculous. The lawsuit Olympics. I feel that we're missing out as a country that Trump has not yet used that term, because it's true. We're in the lawsuit Olympics. I feel like the first year of the Trump administration, we should write it in the history books as the lawsuit Olympics, because there's been so many lawsuits blocking every single thing Trump tries to do. And even at the local level, like everything that happens anywhere, it's a lawsuit, and everything has to go to the Supreme Court now, which used to not be the case. And not to mention like every illegal immigrant facing deportation wanting to file lawsuits, and there's like, 10, 20, 30, 40 million of them? Who knows? Yeah, it's welcome to the games. It's not over yet. It's far from over. Wilma Eden, you're saying, so there are companies that can't find drivers, but my brother has trouble finding loads to run. Are they just being picky? Yeah, when I'm doing the show, the first half, I do read the comments. I saw you mention that, actually. It's interesting. So Wilma, you were raising the point that your brother is a commercial truck driver, but he can't find loads to run. In other words, companies hire truckers. A lot of truckers own their own trucks. They get hired to drive a shipment, right? Carrying loads. What you were saying is your brother, I believe, I assume is an American citizen, has not been able to get jobs. And you're raising the point that, that shouldn't be the case, because last I checked, we're having more deliveries than probably any other time in American history because of, people buying stuff online and the way that's gone. Amazon is running it like it's going out of business, like it's going out of style, right? You're suggesting that if business hasn't changed and you have all these illegal immigrants getting it, I believe the implication being, or at least my assumption would be this: business isn't going away. They're just not giving the contracts to American citizens. And the question is, why would that be? Why are they giving these contracts or these loads to non-citizens and illegal immigrants? Why is it that American citizens can't get jobs? The simple assumption is the same reason why American citizens are having to train their replacements on foreign visas or something like that. The same reason that Americans can't get jobs in the trades anymore. The same reason your kid can't get a job doing deliveries or cheap work. It's because illegal immigrants and foreign workers and foreign visa holders and all that stuff are taking all the jobs. And it goes back to a point I've been raising. I really do think this has been one of the big rallying calls on probably why Trump won. It is true. In 2016, do you remember the biggest issue Trump had going into the polls? It was build the wall. Build the wall was the main issue Trump was saying. Remember, 2016, two narratives. Build the wall, drain the swamp. That's what people voted for. He was saying he was going to stop illegal immigration. He was going to deport people, and that was the big thing. A lot of people voted for that. He didn't really finish it, I think not because of his fault, because he was blocked the whole way through. I don't know if he drained the swamp either, but that was the promise, right? You could argue that the swamp pushed him out, because they investigated him and attacked him like crazy for those 4 years and the 4 years after. But 2024, it's the same thing. The major issues Trump had was, I am your retribution, drain the swamp, and mass deportations, build the wall. Same narratives. When people went and voted, a lot of it was around that. And I think the immigration issue was one of the biggest. And even among Latinos, actually, a lot of them voted for Trump. And even a lot of black Americans, Trump got record black votes, at least for Republicans. He got a lot of support people didn't think he'd get. Why is that? Why do Americans care so much about deportations and stuff? My assumption is that it's actually had a very basic impact on American well-being. It has created more competition in the housing market, which has caused the rents to go up substantially. That has not been the prevailing narrative in the United States. It is the prevailing narrative in other countries, where they've acknowledged, even in Canada, that mass migration and illegal immigration has let people buy up the houses. And supply and demand, if there's more competition for a limited supply, the prices go through the roof. And we've seen that in the U.S., where it costs a lot of money to, the rents are going up. A lot of young people, they've completely lost hope in buying a house. The other side of it is basic impact on financial well-being, the lack of opportunities. Because what do? The truck drivers, I'd say truck drivers are the modern American cowboys. They're the modern American cowboys. They're the ones who are running the shipments, right? The cowboys, that's what they used to do. I know we still have cowboys, but they run the shipments. That's what they're doing, right? They're the guys transporting the goods. That's what the cowboys used to do. And they're going cross states and everything like that. It's part of kind of the American spirit, I think, right? They're a big part of it. CDL licenses going to non-citizens and illegal immigrants, that's taken that away from Americans. If you want to go into one of the white-collar jobs, you want to go into high-tech, you want to go into any high-tech job or work at a major firm, they're bringing in foreign visas. They're H-1B visas. People are training their foreign replacements, and they're doing it because they're paying people less. Or you get people in as a CEO, and they fire all the Americans, and they hire people from their countries. Americans see that. And so you can't get a truck driving job. You can't get a white-collar job. You can't get a high-tech job. Where do you go next? Guess I'll go work in construction. You go to your local construction site. You can't work there either because all the illegal immigrants work in that industry too. And so I know guys who have trouble because they get undercut by these illegal immigrant workers. And it's a very highly competitive marketplace because of the mass numbers of illegal immigrants. They can't get into the trades anymore. So you can't get a trade job. You can't get a truck driving job. You can't get a high-tech job. You can't get a white-collar job. Guess I'll go work at in fast food. Well, guess who's behind the counter? Usually also an illegal immigrant. Well, geez, guess I'll die. Guess I'll. I don't know. What do you do at that point? Get a government job or join the military? Military's open to non-citizens too. Although I don't think that's the majority of them by any means. Guess I'll go work for the government. Okay, great. Like, people are losing their opportunity. You don't have as many options as you used to. And so I think this has really impacted just basic well-being. Also the school system getting overloaded. You go to school and there's 30, 40 kids in your class, and the teacher, if you're lucky, they know your name at this point, but they're not going to have time to teach you, not individually. The quality of education goes down. Limited budgets means that they have to do ESL, English as Second Language classes. They have to eliminate the budget for after school activities or sports. My mom used to be a lunch lady at one of the middle schools or high schools in Riverside. That happened at their school. They lost the budget for after-school activities, and they lost the budget for security because of illegal immigration. You know what I mean? And because they had to start offering all these additional language programs for all the illegal immigrant kids. Once they got rid of security and they got rid of after-school activities like sports, they developed a really bad gang problem. The school became really, really bad, like not safe even for the teachers. And a lot of people experienced that. So for the average experience of your average American, mass illegal immigration has deeply affected you in one way or the other. Not to mention drug trafficking and then gangs and Tren de Aragua and MS-13 and the cartels and everything else. This has had a very direct effect on the well-being of the average person. And so I think that's why it's become such a big issue. Kenneth Winslow, you're saying California may have a lot of House seats now, but with so many people leaving and illegal criminal invaders not being counted on the census, California stands to lose big. I think they do stand to lose big. And actually, I would even point to just legitimate known numbers. California and New York both lost a lot of people. Because high taxes, because of just lower quality of life, because it's harder to start a business, because of crime and that kind of stuff. I know this from experience because I have a lot of family. Again, I'm from San Diego originally. I have a lot, and I work in New York. I have a lot of family who left California. And they didn't leave it because they don't like California. They love California. San Diego is the best climate, the best weather, the best food. The food is really good there. It's amazing. It's paradise. You can go to the desert, you can go snowboarding in the mountains, and you can go surfing in the same day because the weather's like that and they have little climates all over the place. You're not going to find anywhere else like that I know of. San Diego is fantastic. To mess it up, you need to like put in effort. You know, if you're going to make people leave there, you need to really try. But I have a lot of family who left. A lot of them went to Arizona because houses were cheaper and cost of living is less. I had a lot of family move to different parts of the Midwest. A lot of them left because they were escaping high taxes or crime or other things. It just became too much of an issue. And a lot of that they do attribute, first off to the crazy politics that they don't feel represents them, but second all to mass illegal immigration. If I go to the areas I used to frequent as a kid, like OB, Ocean Beach, or some of the real nice beaches, it doesn't look like America anymore. It looks like a third world country. And and I'm talking to somebody who comes from a mixed family. It looks like a third world country. Nobody speaks English. It's crazy. You feel like a foreigner there. And a lot of people experience that. A lot of people experience that, and they left. Now my point of saying that is statistically, I'm not saying this is a rumor, I'm not saying this is an assumption, I'm saying this based on known statistics. It is known that the people who left California were offset by illegal immigrants, by undocumented migrants, and those people were counted on the census. And so California maintained its House seats despite people leaving because illegal immigrants were counted on the census. Same with New York. New York, if you look at foreign-born people in the city, I don't know if it's most of them. I want to say I can't remember the stats off the top of my head. So if I told you the stats, I get them wrong. A lot of New York is foreign-born. It's not, not just illegal immigrants, but just non-U.S. citizens who are counted in the census. And a lot of people in New York, especially during COVID, they moved. A lot of people moved. I moved during COVID. I moved to Jersey during COVID. I used to live in Queens. And again, it was just because it was too crazy living in New York during that time. And you can move to Connecticut or something like that and still work in the city. You can move to Pennsylvania and still work in the city. And a lot of people did. Or move upstate. I know a lot of people moved upstate, actually, too. And so if you change the census, if you redo the census, the offsetting of the people who, and I'll give you a real example. How many people were arriving by bus in New York City every single week, and Mayor Adams, Eric Adams, was trying to stop it even, but he was blocked from doing it by the city council. What was it, like 10,000 people a week? If you have 10,000 people arriving a week over the course of a couple years, and that's even just what's known by the buses, and they're illegal immigrants, you have to pay for them, and you have to buy them housing and everything, food and everything. How many people were counted on the census? How many people does that add up to? If you don't count them, you're gonna see a big shift in this country, because what you're gonna see is a shift of that representation leave those states, and the representation is gonna go to the states where the people went. You're probably gonna see more representation in Arizona and Texas and especially Florida. Although you could say also, Texas and Arizona and Florida also got a lot of illegal immigrants, so we'll see how that affects things. It's going to be interesting when the smoke clears on this. So, we'll see. All right, everyone, that said, it's Tuesday. Man, week goes by fast, huh? Again, don't forget, on Friday, we have the brand new show airing. For now, it's going to be airing as part of Crossroads. Eventually, we're going to make it on YouTube. My plan, I want to launch another show in addition to Crossroads on YouTube. We're still working on that, but I want to have a few of them done before we do that. In the meantime, these are only going to be on Epoch TV. So if you want to watch it, go to Epoch TV. We have a link in the description. Again, anybody who's watched Crossroads for a long time, you know that I've done documentaries and features and gotten myself into a lot of trouble by doing it. But gosh darn it, we had a good impact, right? And I ain't stopping yet. So we have a lot of great stuff in the works. Again, that'll be airing this Friday. And the first one we have coming out, this is going to be about the food dyes. Are they actually dangerous? Are they safe? Why have they been allowed in American foods? Why are they banned elsewhere? I answer all these questions. I investigated all these questions and I will show you the answers to it. That's going to be this Friday, so be sure to check it out. In the meantime, let me know in the chat what you think. Have you been impacted by illegal immigration? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? I want to hear your thoughts on it. I know the different arguments on it. I have friends who are illegal immigrants. I know they're good people. I don't want to see them deported. You know what? Like they're my friends. I'll tease my friends about it. You know what I mean? But I don't have any bad blood with them. But I understand both sides. And I will say that I think a lot of Americans have been impacted. Have you been impacted? I want to hear your thoughts. How has it impacted your life? How has it impacted your financial well-being? What have you seen where you live? Tell me in the comments. And of course, join me again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And as always, please take care of yourselves, stay informed, and stay free. Thank you.